Transcendent Confidence, How to Be Confident Even When You Feel Like a Failure by Samantha Lord. Chapter 1. The past has no power over the present moment. Eckhart Tolle. The fact that I am spiritually centered is the primary reason this book is probably different from other confidence books that you've read. Your spiritual self is your higher self. It's your inner self, your inner space, your inner sanctuary. At the same time, your spirituality also encompasses a sense of something bigger than yourself. This feeling, regardless of your exact ideas about it, helps inspire and keeps us feeling positive in the face of even the harshest challenges. Your spiritual self and inner sanctuary are sacred, and in my approach to confidence, embracing your spiritual side is a crucial first step. But what exactly do I mean by spirituality? While spirituality differs for each person, one constant is that it involves getting in touch with your being in each moment. This is mindfulness. It is being present in the deepest and most meaningful parts of your being, in the present moment, just as Eckhart Tolle describes. As we see here in this quote from the brilliant Eckhart Tolle, we control how we experience what the present moment has for us. The past has no power over you unless you let it. It has no impact on your experiences of the present moment. Yes, I know. If you've had a difficult life like I have, that is really hard to believe. And it's not an absolute. It's not a rule, it's a tool. There is no judgment in this. It's just a tool you can use to help you get through while still building your confidence and keeping your confidence and sense of self strong. You don't hear many people talking about this, but our perception of the past can hold us back in the present and future. Even if we've gone through profound trauma in our past, we can help ourselves by recognizing that reality on an objective level, but in our inner selves, reframing the emotional part of our experience. Don't worry, this never means letting people get away with things with no accountability. What it does mean is using the way our brains and spirits work to your own advantage. Recognize the profound spirituality within you, which includes your higher purpose. Get in touch with your deep emotions and feel gratitude for each and every breath. Get centered in your higher self. Recognize your inner life and spirituality. You are much more than your body. One of the most toxic parts of our current Western culture is a false idea that we are just our bodies. Maybe you've lost contact with your higher self and spirituality because of the effect of this culture on your thinking. If you ignore your higher self, it will eventually give up on trying to make contact with you. It's time to tell your higher self that you're ready to honor it. You're ready to listen to its intuitions and messages, and you won't push them away. You want to listen and think about what your higher self and spirituality are telling you. You will realize that you profoundly transcend any of the petty categories our society tells us to put ourselves in. They limit and stop us from achieving a lasting connection with our inner world and an intense feeling of happiness and joy. Let's face it, many of the powerful of this world don't exactly want us to be spiritually intelligent beings, in touch with our own fonts of inner wisdom. Instead, we're supposed to fall in line and limit ourselves for the convenience and profit of the people above, quote unquote, above us. But there is no one above you. You are the most important person in your life, and it's time to make the most of your time on this planet. What does spirituality mean to you? Spirituality is never a limitation. It is only an expansion of possibility and consciousness. But as we currently live in a material-obsessed culture in the Western world, spirituality has become a loaded term. Some people roll their eyes and think it's something they don't have time for. But you don't have the time not to be spiritual. It's time to think about your current ideas about spirituality and unpack them, so you can understand any limiting labels you've been imposing on spirituality and exploration of your higher self. Become more mindful. Mindfulness has become a buzzword over the last several years, but its importance in your life cannot possibly be exaggerated. Mindfulness can transform your consciousness and experience of life and how you experience things and harness their power. It is a powerful confidence-building tool. What is mindfulness? Living in the past will destroy your confidence. This is especially true if you have a lot of things in your past that you consider failures. Put simply, mindfulness is keeping yourself centered in the present moment. When you're mindful, you feel a profound sense of joy. You feel and embrace every breath, grateful for the fact that you're alive. One common misunderstanding about mindfulness is the idea that living in the present moment means you won't plan for the future. The opposite is actually true. Mindfulness gives you the presence of mind, notice the word presence in that expression, to achieve clarity of thought. And clear thinking is essential to good decision making and planning. Mindfulness will also help you get in touch with your higher self and spirituality, and it has a profound effect on your confidence. When you're mindful and fully present in this moment, you see the vast range of possibilities and just how much ability and potential you truly have. Practicing mindfulness doesn't have to be hard. No need to do complicated exercises or have esoteric knowledge. Just practice your focus in the moment, developing your presence and strength of mind. Try a focus meditation. Focus on something soothing and mesmerizing, like a video of a candle flickering. I find that walking is a great way to do focus meditation. Simply go out for a walk outside in the fresh air, staying mindful by focusing on your movements and every step you take. Stay aware of your breathing. With mindfulness, you stay in the present moment rather than letting yourself slip into the past or future. Embrace the sacred. Your inner space is sacred. You are sacred. As Deepak Chopra so eloquently states in the Book of Secrets, finding the hidden dimensions in yourself is the only way to fulfill your deepest hunger. You must treasure and protect your inner space. It's a sacred space within yourself that no one can affect or touch. It's a precious asset when it comes to your sense of self and confidence. When you have a strong and protected inner space, no one can make you feel less confident. You have an inner fortress that protects you from the damage that the corruption and pain in this world can cause. Joseph Campbell once said, "Your sacred space is where you can find yourself again and again." It's impossible to say this more eloquently. Campbell was an expert on myth, but the sacred space completely transcends that. In some ways, your sacred space is the most real and grounded thing in your entire life, in your entire world. It's a place you can always turn to. He's talking about our sacred space, the inner space we must protect, is our inner sanctuary. If you want to fully understand and maximize the impact of your spiritual journey, and therefore give yourself a never-ending spring of confidence and self-belief that you can draw on, you need your sacred space. In order to embrace the sacred, you must acknowledge that it exists. Sadly, much of the mass media and many of the areas of society that we're encouraged to think of as authoritative have no understanding of this incredibly important part of our existence. Maybe people around you have ridiculed your belief in a sacred realm. If so, it's time to break away from what they say. Be kind to them and try to help them become more knowledgeable too, but understand that they may have a longer journey. Broaden your perspective. Life is about the big picture, and it's all about how you experience things. The way you see things determines how you will experience them. That is why changing your perspective can change your thoughts and emotions, and it can transform your confidence. In every part of life, seeing and understanding the big picture is key to confidence. If you think you're failing in some way, you're much too hard on yourself. You're not seeing enough of the big picture. As individuals, we tend to be much harder on ourselves than we are on other people. And part of the reason for this is the fact that we often see our own actions and what we perceive as shortcomings in a vacuum. What does that mean? Well, we tend to forget the context. Context is everything. Context is truly everything. You've heard this expression before, but if you're like most people, you probably don't realize that it applies to literally everything in your life. Seeing the big picture is far more than a cliche. Maybe you've heard people using that kind of language without even knowing what it truly means. The big picture is more than big. It's vast and perhaps even infinite. As wise as we can become as human beings, we can never know everything. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt. There may be factors that you and the people around you don't know about. Maybe if you've been alive 50 years or 100 years from now, it would be common knowledge, but it's not right now. Don't punish yourself. As we'll learn later in this book, you've got to be as kind to yourself as you would be to the person you love the most in your life. This could be a family member or best friend. It's time to be your own best friend, and seeing the big picture and broadening your perspective is a crucial component of that life-changing project. When you broaden your perspective, you have the chance to be fair to yourself. As a fair and just person, you'd never judge someone without knowing the full context of their life. Make sure you're fair to yourself too. And let go of the idea of judgment. Harshly judging yourself won't do any good. Instead, make good and enlightened decisions from this moment forward. Make kind decisions, decisions that encompass a whole context. I don't know about you, but I have an unusual life story, and I found that most people don't like the fact that it's unusual. They prefer neat little labels and categories. They're so wrapped up in themselves and the labels that make them feel comfortable that they labeled me as soon as I said a given word without taking the trouble to understand the context. This tore me apart. Or almost tore me apart for years. It made me question my identity and the real experiences of my life. All because some people were too lazy or too self-absorbed to understand context. I don't let that happen anymore. Whatever anyone chooses, the key word here is chooses, is to assume is their problem. And more importantly, it has no effect on me and my sense of identity. Stay aware of gaslighting. When we're low in confidence, we're extremely vulnerable to gaslighting. We've heard a lot about gaslighting in popular culture over the last several years, and I believe this new awareness has helped many people, including me. That's why sometimes we have to question what other people around us are saying and presenting as common sense or indisputable fact. Trust your inner self and inner instinct. People who try to gaslight you might dismiss context with the goal of making you doubt your own understanding of things. Always remember this as you move through your life and interact with others. Take the long view. It's time to take the long view. You've got to live in the present while keeping the context of the past and potential futures in your consciousness. It's a subtle balance, but once you've got it right, you'll always recognize it and know how to strike it. Don't obsess about the future. All you can do is your best. It's called best for a reason. So, if you make sure that you're doing your best in this present moment and every other moment that comes, you'll maximize your success. When you take the long view, you are able to keep things in proportion. This includes things that you consider to be failures. Another way of saying take the long view is to play the long game. That's another useful way to think about it. When you lack confidence, you tend to get overwhelmed by the problems of the present moment. Instead of that, cultivate a sense of joy in the present moment. Live fully in the present moment and truly love and revere your higher self. You are a sacred being and the whole world is possible for you. Don't let other people's mind games hold you back. I also highly recommend learning about history. The more you discover about the past, even the distant past, and the lives people experienced in different eras, the more you realize that sometimes a common consensus is completely wrong. For example, much of what was thought to be common sense hundreds of years ago is now understood to be nonsense, or much worse. In the same way, some of the beliefs most of us take for granted today may be correctly dismissed and disparaged 200 years from now. This means that at any point in time, there is always a possibility that what experts or people consider more knowledgeable than you think is wrong. If you don't have time to read history, listen to some videos or podcasts about famous people and events from centuries or even just decades ago. There are some great ones out there, and they'll help you understand the importance of context and the significance of the long view. Try reading some biographies too. You will see how complex life can be and how people you admire have made mistakes and forgiven themselves, transcending their imagined limitations. 5 ways being more spiritual will help you develop transcendent confidence. Here I'm going to break down exactly how being more spiritual and centered in your higher self will help you become more confident. 1. You'll feel a connection to something bigger than any human being. This is one of the treasures of getting centered in your higher spiritual self. I don't think anyone could ever possibly describe how empowering it is to feel that there is a greater power that transcends anything and everything in this world. 2, you'll feel more independent. When we don't feel connected to a higher reality, we place excessive value on our connections with other human beings who are always capable of disappointing us. We feel like we'll lose ourselves if we lose their regard, but that's not true, and understanding this will transform your life. You'll have more trust in outcomes. Number 3, you'll have more trust in outcomes. A huge part of confidence is trusting that you can handle things and circumstances will turn out well. Luckily, when you cultivate your spirituality and higher self, you feel much more certain of your abilities and judgment. You won't feel devastated. Number 4, you won't feel devastated by rejection. One of the things that spirituality can give you is a connection to something higher and transcendent that will make you feel much more resilient when you have to deal with rejection. Your connection to spirituality means that you have something to turn to and be comforted by. Number 5, you'll understand your profound intrinsic worth. Embracing your spirituality and cherishing your inner sanctuary is a profound reminder of your intrinsic worth. Your intrinsic worth is a value that you have as a human being, no matter what mistakes you make or anything else that could happen. Questions and answers, protecting your inner sanctuary. Getting centered in your higher self and spirituality means that you become a conscious, fully aware human being. This is a major tool in your confidence building toolkit. It will help you, it will help keep you resilient and love yourself even in the face of the worst difficulties and challenges. If you're like most other readers, you probably still have some questions. Let's take a look at some frequently asked questions and my answers about protecting your inner sanctuary. Your question: I never thought of myself as spiritual, and other people don't think I have a strong spiritual side. Is it still possible for me to get in touch with my higher self? My answer: yes, absolutely. Other people's ideas about spirituality may not be yours. Maybe your family and friends aren't spiritual and don't understand that each and every one of us has a spiritual higher self. Life is about learning and growing, and that never stops. No matter where you are in life, you can develop your spiritual understanding and expand your consciousness. In the next chapter, I'll talk about transcending labels, and that comes into play here. Don't be limited by the label spiritual as other people conceive of it. Instead, embrace it and define what it means for you. Being spiritual means having the most expansive consciousness possible. If you've ever read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, a book I highly recommend, you know he says that the vast majority of people go through their lives unconscious. This means that they never get in touch with their inner selves or their higher selves. Your question: does being centered in my higher self mean that I have to be perfect? My answer: absolutely not. In fact, you will be much more compassionate to yourself and understanding of whatever you interpret as mistakes or failures. In Western cultures, many of us haven't fostered a connection with and developed an understanding of our higher selves. Maybe you've never even heard of that expression until reading this book. If so, I'm so happy and relieved that you're here, because you absolutely do have a higher self. Everyone has a higher self, no matter how little you might sense it or think you sense it at this moment. If you lack confidence and think you're a failure, maybe you think so little of yourself that you imagine you don't really have a higher self. But the opposite is true. In fact, those of us who have experienced pain, heartache, disappointment, and shame in our lives have special spiritual tools that can make our connections to our higher selves stronger than what most other people can achieve. Reflective writing prompts on spirituality, your higher self, and protecting your inner sanctuary. Grab your journal, remember I mentioned that in the introduction, and write down your answers to these reflection questions to help you better synthesize and understand what you've learned in this chapter. Prompt 1. Write down what spirituality means to you at this moment. Think about whether there are limitations in how you've thought about spirituality and how you can broaden your understanding. Brainstorm how protecting your inner self and space by recognizing your spiritual nature and higher self will give you something you can always fall back on to strengthen your confidence in difficult times. If you've never thought about this question before, you may have to spend some time in quiet meditation to truly get in touch with the nature of your inner being. Prompt 2. Spend some time thinking about how and when you can question what you see and know, and what other people say that they see and know. Sometimes our perceptions can deceive us, especially when we're in dysfunctional or destructive social contexts. What you think is common sense may deceive you, because it all depends on how you've been conditioned to think. If you've been subjected to dysfunctional and/or manipulative people and circumstances, what you think is right might not actually be right for you. Prompt 3. Have you had any spiritual experiences in your life? Talk about them and why you felt knew that they were spiritual and connected to your higher self. Remember, spiritual experiences don't have to include what we traditionally think of as spirits or the spiritual realm. They do indirectly, however. For example, when you get tuned into your higher self, you intrinsically get closer to the spiritual dimension. Prompt 4. Think about things you can do to develop your spirituality and connection to your higher self. What activities or ways of thinking could you add to your daily life that will help you develop spiritually? Examples could include meditation, mindfulness practice, going for walks in nature, spending time with your pet or a trusted loved one who also wants to be more mindful, and spending time in peaceful silence. Affirmations to help you protect your inner self. Read these affirmations and jot them down in your notebook so you can refer to them and read them aloud every day. I am a human being. Therefore, I am a sacred being. Nothing outside me can attack my confidence unless I let it. If other people choose to have negative thoughts about me, that is their problem. They cannot touch my inner sanctuary. I wrap my inner self and my heart in loving kindness. I am a worthy person and I deserve to protect myself. I forgive myself for everything that others try to attack me about. I am a beautiful soul and I keep myself safe and protected. I deserve everything that is beautiful and joyful.